program will begin shortly. Launch sequence. Activate. Warning, the following content is not politically correct. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back to the channel today, everyone. I'm Sarah Higdon. This is Transform to Freedom. What a week, y'all. Well, hope y'all had a happy Thanksgiving. Mine was pretty low-key. Since I don't live near my family, I kind of just hung out at the house. Cooked some chili. I hung out with the dogs. We watched some Christmas movies and relaxed. I ended up going to the gym, my normal schedule, most of this week. So the whole weekend was my normal schedule as to what I do, like going to the gym and everything like that. So I'll say it was pretty good. It was good to relax. Not have to worry too much about things that are going on. But yeah, it was a good weekend. Good morning. What do you mean good morning? It's evening. So yeah. Interestingly enough, I wanted to just kind of raise this with everybody that watches this show. So if you watch the show and you don't watch it live, usually, you may have noticed last week that the episode from last week was not available the morning after the stream. So Tuesday morning, the episode was not available. YouTube decided to copyright. I didn't get a copyright strike for it, but I did get a copyright violation to where they took the video down and they demonetized the video. And it was for my reaction in playing one of those news videos from the Wicked press tour. So it was the iHeartRadio video, and now instead of cutting that section, so if you've noticed, there's been different sections where I've had to cut out portions of the audio where or even portions of the video to where so in the replay you'll see it, I have to take out the video, because what's been happening is all my videos have begun to be demonetized because of copyright issues. This was the first one that they actually blocked for a copyright issue. So the full video is blocked, and I decided not to take out the portion that was blocked. I decided to claim fair use. I also posted about it on Twitter. So the video was brought back, I think about Wednesday, maybe even Thursday. So you can see the video is available now. So it's not blocked anymore. I guess they did release the copyright to say, yes, that is fair use. However, that video was demonetized. And that's been happening to me a lot lately on YouTube. So it's really difficult to do this every week and to realize that YouTube is just going to demonetize these videos. And so yeah, it sucks, because I like coming here. I like sharing the news with y'all. I like the platform that we have here. But at some point it starts to be like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this, especially on YouTube? YouTube is incredibly difficult to get traction. Live streams don't do a whole lot. And so there may come a time where we start pulling this channel from YouTube. I don't know. I have a big and significant following on YouTube. But at the same time, this live stream doesn't do that great over there. So we'll see what happens there, because obviously YouTube has kind of started to suck. plain and simple. I don't know. And so maybe I just start doing regular videos like I used to do over there. Do the once a week, edited videos for everybody. But it just that was a kind of a big wake up call, because I'm like, all I do is share news on this show. We talk about the news of the day. We share videos, and like almost every other like channel like this on YouTube, we play clips from news sites. That's all it is. And if that becomes copyright, if that becomes like copyright violations and stuff like that, it's gonna be really hard to keep this channel going. And it's really interesting because I will say I don't know. So most channels that are on here are not reliant on. So like, let's just go on some of the bigger channels like Tim Pool and stuff like that. Most of those shows are not necessarily reliant on ad revenue, right? Those shows are reliant mostly on super chats. So they have bigger audiences, they have more super chats coming in, and it's a lot easier, and that's how they make their money. So whether they're getting demonetized or not, they're really not worrying about it, because it's not as significant to the budget for it. But it becomes an issue. And then you have somewhere like Twitter, where if you go on there, you can do really well. Like, and you don't even have to produce as much content to get paid more money on Twitter. Like Twitter payouts every 2 weeks are a lot more than YouTube payouts if you're a smaller channel. And so in order for me to even recreate what I'm doing making over on Twitter, on YouTube, I would have to go back to making possibly even 2 videos per week. And it seems as well as they devalue. So if you're a smaller channel and you're doing live streams on YouTube, you don't get the bang for your buck on YouTube doing live streams. So like all my individual posted videos that I do on live streams always do a lot better than on YouTube. So like if I do a video about one topic and it's a 10-minute video, it generally gets a lot more traction than these Monday night live streams. So we'll be taking a look to see how we can revamp the channel a little bit. I will not be here next week. I will be traveling for some holiday stuff next week. So I will be in DC. So I'm just so everybody here knows, this show is gonna be taking some time off next week. We should be, after that, probably going to be good to go through the holidays, and then in January I'm going to be taking some time off as well. But I'm going to start brainstorming as to what we can do to like I said, revamp this channel a little bit, because yeah, it's a mess when you're trying to when you come on here, you spend your time, I come spend the time with y'all, and I like, this is the thing, is I enjoy the audience that we have here, and I want to come on here and stream with y'all every week. And it just becomes, and then they demonetize and then block the video, so you can't even come see it. And so I get, a quarter of the people that normally watch the show see the show, because they come on Tuesday morning, they go, oh, there must not have been a show, when it was actually YouTube that blocked it. So for everybody who normally is not able to catch the show live, usually watches the next day, that is what happened. Oh my gosh, Robbie, you are a doll. Thank you. Robbie sent $50 in super chat. So just because I love you, thank you so much. That is very much appreciative. And yeah, thank you. But that's what we're gonna continue to do that. And I mean, I have no qualms. I mean, the show is gonna continue for the time being. I'm not saying I'm shutting the show down. It's just we're gonna figure out how to revamp this a little bit more to make it worth our while and see. And I mean, obviously, we're gonna continue to push the buttons on YouTube. We'll see how YouTube changes the algorithms come January to see if these types of things become less prevalent, because obviously Twitter's taken over. They're taking over on everything. We just saw Mark Zuckerberg heading to Mar-a-Lago last week to I guess bend the knee to President Trump. Apparently he came out of there and said that he wants to make Meta free speech like Elon's doing with X. So we'll see if Google does the same thing with YouTube. But yeah. So that's that's what happened in the video last week. And I do but let's go into the news of the day. So we may have talked about it last week. I'm not sure. I think we probably did. So if you hadn't seen, there's been talk of, I'm pretty sure we talked about this last week, right? So there's been talk about Donald Trump removing, like basically kicking out any trans members of the military. As I said last week, and as I've been consistent with, is there's things that I don't think that you should be able to do in service. So in reality, I don't know if you should be able to have the surgery, like bottom surgery, and serve in the military, because there is a requirement there that makes, you have to dilate every week, and all that. But I think taking hormones is different, and I think you should be able, if you can do your job effectively, you should be able to serve in that manner. So there's been these rumors going around that that they're going to kick out all military members. But then just this weekend, the Trump spokesperson, who is now going to be the press secretary, said that issue is still open. And so let me see. So the statement from Trump's spokesperson and incoming White House press secretary said that unnamed sources are speculating and have no idea what they are actually talking about. No policy should ever be deemed official unless it comes directly from from President Trump or his authorized spokespeople. So what kind of started this is a nonprofit organization called Sparta Pride told military.com earlier this week that there are 15,000 trans personnel stationed around the world. Trump said during his first time in office that the U.S. would no longer allow trans people to serve in any capacity, reversing the order that the Obama administration's policy allowing trans individuals to serve openly in the military and receive taxpayer-funded gender-affirming treatments while serving. And if you remember, in 2017, Trump changed this policy. So he said, there was this whole idea that he was not going to allow any trans people to ever serve. And then that caused a lot of stir. And I remember when this was going on, I was actually still in the military when this was going on. I was not transitioned when this was going on, but at the time he had cited a tremendous medical cost and disruption. After the legal challenges, he ended up changing that policy to be any individual with gender dysphoria from serving unless they had unless they had not undergone sex change and were stable in their biological sex. So if you watch the Jubilee episode with me, I kind of explained that the ban was not a ban. And I actually supported it because it basically allowed trans people to serve openly. So you could go to a ball, you could do whatever you wanted. You know, you could wear a dress to a ball, you could serve openly as a trans person. And still serve, but you had to serve under your, you still had to meet the requirements of your sex and not your gender identity, right? And so I assume, and again, nobody was kicked out of the military. This is the other thing, is that nobody was ever kicked out of the military during the first Trump administration after they had come out as trans in the first place, and they had started hormones, and they had surgeries. Nobody was kicked out for those things. It would be a great feat to kick all those people out. Our force cap now is actually under what it was pre-World War II. So kicking out all those people just gets us closer to a possible draft. And so all the liberals that want to go, fight in Ukraine are actually advocating for their own sons and daughters to be drafted instead, because we just don't have the force. And 15,000 is a lot. Most people don't realize that trans people make up a large portion of the military. In general, it's been trans people have served in the military under the guise of don't ask, don't tell. They just never, they never transitioned until after they got out of the military. And I have some theories about that. I can only speak for myself when I say, I think that when I went in the military, there was this sense that the military would, I guess, make a man out of me. It was doing something that was more masculine. I wanted to go in. I actually wanted to be go into special forces when I was graduating high school. And I think that was partly because I was trying to overcompensate for my gender dysphoria that I had all my life. And I've kind of talked about this before too, is that I've never been suicidal in my life. But I think that there was a disregard for my life, that I didn't really value it as much as the average person, or as much as I should have in the first place. And so I can see that that's kind of where a lot of people with gender dysphoria, why there's probably this high population of people with gender dysphoria in the military, because there's a lot of overcompensation going on there. Wanting to not feel so feminine, doing something more hyper masculine to overcompensate. That makes a lot of sense to me. When we come into the incoming Trump administration again, I will just say that I don't agree with an all-out ban on trans people in the military. People want to cite medications, but people take medications in the military for all different reasons. There's actually a prescription deployment program, or it's a deployment prescription program, the DPP, where you take 6 months of supply of your prescription with you, and then once you get there, you order another 6 months so it gets there before you run out of your other prescription. It's not just for gender dysphoria. It's not just for like hormones and stuff like that. It's also for, people take PTSD medicines, they take SSRIs, they take all these, there's a lot of different medications that people take that still allows them to deploy while on medication. So I'm not so worried about medications. It's interesting to watch a lot of people who have never served in the military discuss this issue when it's clear that they don't understand the issue. People in the military generally don't care who you are, what you do. As long as you can do your job, that is all people care about. So that's all people really care about, is if you can do your job and do it well. And I know some very highly decorated trans soldiers. Okay. One was a infantry officer when I was transitioned after we had met, and actually after I had gotten out, but they were in the 82nd when we were, I think they were leaving as I was getting there, but we met and had we have a lot of mutual friends, so we've kind of not really kept in contact, but we follow each other on social media and stuff. And again, a very highly decorated officer in the Army, doing great things. So my good friend Laura, who many of you guys may have known, she hasn't done a lot online recently, but she was doing stuff with Trans Against Groomers back in the day and everything like that. She was a photographer for the Old Guard when we met. And so there's a lot of people that can serve honorably, and I think that's what, again, Trump will be looking at. I think that's the type of thing. I think he, I would be welcome to the conversation to sit down. Obviously, I'd be welcome to the conversation to. Laura was on Twitter, Robbie. I don't think she's kind of stayed away from a lot of the conversation for a little while, and some of it had to do with issues that were going on for speaking out against some of the trans stuff that was going on, not in the military, but just as a whole. So but there's a lot of people that can serve honorably, and I would tell Donald Trump this as well, as somebody who's served in the military and knows people that were trans in the military. I think oh, thank you. They're my Christmas nails. There's a lot of people that are that should be allowed to serve with gender dysphoria. And I don't think anybody should be kicked out simply because they have gender dysphoria and they've been allowed to serve. Otherwise, it just becomes this political football, and it's not a fun thing, right? So I think I think that you allow people to serve in the capacities that they can. And this is the other thing that people are getting wrong, and especially with terminology, even with women serving in the military. I served with 2 of the first 3 female Ranger graduates, and I've since I was actually on the Jubilee debate, I met the third one, the third woman who graduated Ranger School first. So I know all 3 of the first. I know all the first 3 Ranger graduates that were female. And I can tell you, like, at least the ones that. So I used to PT with Shay when we were on brigade staff together, and she would just destroy. I mean, she was amazing at PT. Like, she would just destroy. Honestly, I think she possibly, when they switched over to the genderless PT standard, the job-based PT standard, which was the ACFT, I want to say she was maxing that out, which was very difficult task to do. But that's what the Army tried to do, is of a job. I'm actually in favor of like job-based PT standards instead of gender-based PT standards. And for this reason, if you're an infantry soldier and you gotta, like, especially a light infantry, you have to carry a lot of weight. You have to be able to perform under pressure in those ways. So I have no, and when people say women shouldn't serve in combat, well, I mean, I was a logistics officer serving in the front lines, and we had women serving in our units for much longer than any other unit, and than most other units, and we see just as much combat, if not more, than on per capita than infantry units, because if you don't know, I mean, every war that's ever been won has been won because of cutting off the supply lines. So logistics units are a key target, and it's a soft target for the enemy as well. So it's a soft target, and it's a high value target, because if you can't get food to the front lines, then it makes it very difficult to fight without food. Because who was it? Was it General MacArthur once said? Was it MacArthur? I don't know. I don't remember who said it. Said, wars are won on your stomach. It might have even been General Washington. But yeah, wars are won on your stomach. And that's why the logistics are as good as they are. So, yeah, so we'll see what happens there. But this is just a good reminder, I guess, to say, don't always believe what is coming out from the media, or what rumors are being told online, because doesn't necessarily mean that it's accurate until it comes out from the president himself. So we'll see what happens there. I'm assuming it's going to go back to the way it was under his first term. It worked out pretty well, actually, I guess, in that case. Other than everybody that's in currently would be grandfathered in, right? I don't know. Okay, so next thing, the National Health Service in the UK so the National Health Service trust that spread misinformation with claims that trans women could breastfeed just as well as new mothers makes a U-turn under pressure. So I don't think we've ever talked about this on the show, but this has been one of those things that's so infuriating to me, that the gender ideologues have pushed to say that a male taking powerful drugs can breastfeed, and then that milk is just as good as that comes from a woman. It's not. And what's always been really infuriating to me is that and the reasoning that they had never actually made sense, right? So the drug that they have to use and take a lot of and pump into the body, it's actually not even FDA approved. It's not even recommended for women to take this drug to enhance breast milk production. It's not recommended, or even, like I said, it's not FDA approved. It's not recommended because they don't know what effects the chemicals that get passed through to the baby will have. They don't know. And so basically there's no nutrition in this milk. When it's a male that's taking it. And so it basically becomes just this liquid cocktail of nothingness that is supposedly milk, but it doesn't have the same nutritional values. And so so finally they reverse course quietly. So this is the trust. This is the whole thing that had these trans activists, claiming that they could breastfeed, and it was safe. This is what they were using as their basis to say it was safe, was this misinformation. So a leaked letter this year from the medical director of University Hospice Sussex NHS Foundation Trust has suggested that milk production produced by trans women who are born male with the help of powerful drugs was comparable to that produced by women following the birth of a baby. The letter was responsible for complaints about guidelines drawn up to the trust, which advised trans women may be able to induce lactation. When this was brought up, they said the trust is not aware of any instances where trans women, biological men, have expressed a wish to help feed their partner's child. I mean, had they been living under a rock? Their claim is that they've not seen any males that wish to do this. Had they not been on the internet and realized that this was like a massive controversy last year when trans activists tried to say that they could breastfeed, And as such, so many people in general were calling a lot of, and this is, and I believe this, these people, the people that were doing this are basically, they're fetishists who are basically abusing a child to satisfy their fetish of breastfeeding that child. Okay. You can't say, I mean, there's nothing I can say that would be any different. It really is essentially child abuse to make a child suck the nipple of a male who has no reason to be breastfeeding a child. And they were trying to say that the milk was just as good as it would be if it was coming from a woman. And obviously, if you're pumping a ton of drugs into your system, it's not going to be the same. So it's infuriating to me. And as Millie Hill said, so then they were using this as their basis to say that it was all well and good. And so, as the campaigner for the women's rights said, Millie Hill said, the false information puts babies at risk. Yeah, it put a lot of babies at risk. I mean, women don't take, now this is probably an exaggeration, but women don't even take aspirin when they're breastfeeding, because they know that certain things get passed through the system into the through their breast milk to their babies, and it's not good for babies to be getting all this stuff. Yeah, Robbie says, I'm not going to say what I think because I'm already on a list. Well, I'm probably on the list now too. This is honestly the first time I've come straight out and said that this is child abuse for fetishists. Males have no business breastfeeding. Listen, if you are a trans woman, there is no reason for you to be even attempting to breastfeed. At that point, you have, so if you're with a man, then at that point you can get donor milk from people, or you can use formula, which a lot of people would recommend. I would say that formula is probably better than drug-induced lactation. Okay? It's insane to me that it took this long for them to finally admit. I mean, this is what, over a year in the making. It's infuriating. But the optimist in me says the tides are changing. People are understanding and paying attention. And now these agencies are going, wait, we can't just push this stuff. It's actually putting people in harm. But I mean, even Emma Thomas, the founder of Children of Transitioners, which supports people whose parents change genders, and which initially complained about the guy and said, we have no idea how many babies worldwide have been harmed as a result of this. In the thing, they had referenced a study which found milk produced from induced lactation had no observable side effects in babies, but now it appears it no longer stands by those claims. Honestly, they all just need to be held responsible for this guidance, which was clearly putting children in harm. Come on now. All right, let's move to the U.S. Let's move to news of the day stuff. Interestingly enough, so Yeah, I mean, things are like you're right. The well, yeah, Mishka says I've seen a channel on here where men are pregnant, men in quotes are pregnant. Not gonna say the channel, but bruh, yeah, no. So there's the one, I think I don't know. There's the one trans person who was very adamant about this. Like, I haven't seen their content in a while, but they were like all about like this, and I think they might have gotten shamed off the internet. I don't know. I doubt it. They're probably just on TikTok, and I don't go on there like ever. They're not on Twitter anymore. But yeah. So interestingly enough, though, oh yeah. So Robbie, you're right. Yeah, it is getting better. I'm just sad for the kids that messed up during this. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing when it comes to like detransitioners and stuff like that. It's like people are waking up to the fact of the gender ideology and what's happening with the gender cult and everything like this. And so hopefully in the future, we're not going to have as many, detransitioners, people that are regretting this. Hopefully this starts to get solved and we're winning the fight against the gender activist, I would hope. Like it seems like things are are optimistic. I'm optimistic about stuff. And I think that what we're actually starting to see is the pendulum starting to level out a little bit. It was swinging back hard. I think it's starting to level out because just before I came on, there was a J.K. Rowling messaged Buck Angel earlier, and then somebody commented to her about Buck, and she lashed out and said, basically, you're not going to try to you're not going to, what is it? You're not going to compel my speech, just as gender activists aren't going to compel my speech. And I will refer to trans people that I admire and respect any way I feel. And you will not tell me how to talk about them. So she had a very, very normal take, which is what I've seen from her. And it just shows like that's even the extreme on the other side, the horseshoe theory is coming back, but the extremes on the gender critical side, she is now starting to see how extreme some people on her side can be, which that opens the door even more for people like me and her to have conversations here in the middle about what we do to fix the problem. I think a lot of people are opening up that pill. But yeah, so moving on to the Washington Post, y'all. If this doesn't, I don't think that they thought this one through, this headline through. It says, as his power grows, DC wonders, how do you lobby a man like Elon Musk? Musk flaunted his closeness with Trump, but his unconventional approach leaves few obvious ways to reach him. So let's think about what this is actually saying. This is saying the quiet part out loud, right? It's saying that DC is bought and paid for. The people in DC are bought and paid for by powerful lobbyists. But Elon Musk is the richest man in the world. How do you influence the richest man in the world in a way that is going to make him want to do something for you? You can't lobby a man like Elon Musk, especially after he made it was the when Disney, it was the whole conversation at that one forum where he told the CEO of Disney to fuck off because you can't threaten him with money, threaten him with power. He said, you're going to try to threaten me with with money. You're going to threaten. Who cares? And so that attitude has now got people in Washington sweating because you can't bribe a man like Elon Musk who has all the money in the world. How do you do it? And so this headline, it tells you so much about how corrupt Washington, D.C. is. Like I said, I don't think they thought this headline through. I don't think they realized by writing this headline, they are telling on the Washington establishment and how money talks in Washington. You can buy a vote in Washington, but you can't buy a man like Elon Musk. You can't buy that. That you can't influence a man like that with money. He has all the money. So you have to, with somebody like Elon Musk, you have to be rational. You have to talk about, what is actually beneficial for the betterment of society. So it's interesting to see them kind of starting to let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, with this, right? Continuing on with Elon Musk, like, it's so funny that, again, more letting the cat out of the bag. So let's play this clip from CNN where they Scott Jennings is like the lone, like, I guess, conservative on CNN. And he's basically on there for ratings because he's the only person that people are coming over there to watch. But he says he gets lambasted by the other host for saying that Twitter is the most ideological balanced platform out of any platform. And as we talked about earlier with YouTube, obviously, and now even Zuckerberg now starting to want to be more like Elon. I mean, it's obviously true. And this is interesting because then you can see he's right, according to CNN's own reporting. So let's watch this.
I heard what you're saying about X. I saw a survey this week. It's now the most ideologically balanced user platform.
Scott, stop. It's too early. I just sat down. I've only been here for 2 minutes.
You cannot continue to say
the show, you cannot say that.
So,
That's not the case.
So
Who's the source of that?
What I find, we reported it on this network.
Look at this. The party ID among those who regularly use X/Twitter for news. Back in 2022, 65% of those who regularly use Twitter/X for news were Democrats. Just 31% were Republicans. Look at where we are today. Just a completely different picture. Now it's basically split between Democrats at 48%, Republicans at 47%. And what I should note, Mr. Berman, is this new overall makeup matches the overall electorate far better.
I heard what you're saying about X. I saw a survey.
So, as you see, actually, X is still 1% in Democrat blue favor, according to the CNN reporting. It's still a Democrat platform, but it's even. It's basically even, 100% even, 48-48. But and like they said, it actually represents the demographic of America a lot better. So here's the issue. And again, is the liberals are telling on themselves. The people, the progressives on CNN are telling on themselves. Because to them, they have had it so good on social media that conservatives have been so censored. So they see equality. They see more conservatives on the platform, and they see an equal amount of dialogue and discussion, and they don't, and they see that as they have lost ground and it's all alt-right. But everything's alt-right when, to the right of Hillary Clinton is considered alt-right, That's what they're considering alt-right. They don't realize that most people on the platform are still Democrats, moderates, and all that stuff, and all that. They are just not as extreme. And when you don't ban, your political opponents, they see you as extreme. So yes, you're going to see some things you don't like on there, but it is actually the most ideologically balanced platform. But this is, it's the progressives. They're telling on themselves again because they don't realize like they are extreme. Like if you see, like you have lost the plot if you don't think that and this is again going back to the election and not actually learning from the election, not learning from what happened in the election. There's no self-reflection about how these, the mainstream media is losing their voter base, and it's because they don't actually understand their voter base. They have gone so extreme that they think that, like I said, anything to the right of Hillary Clinton is considered alt-right. So I don't know. Do I have any thoughts on SES says, do you have any thoughts on people leaving X for Blue Sky? Blue Sky is interesting. I went over, I actually got an account over there. I logged in to see what's going on over there. It seems dead. Either that or my voice is suppressed over there. I don't know. It's people. I don't think it's a benefit. This is actually where me and like the Krasensteins actually agree on something. I don't think it's a benefit to society to go live in an echo chamber. That's the problem is they progressives in so many ways see that they don't like their voice is so they see that they can't actually articulate their opinions and they can't win arguments based on facts. And so they are going to take their ball and go home. Instead of having reasonable conversations with people, they would rather take their ball and go home. And so I mean, they obviously have the right to go do so. It's kind of one of those things like, yeah, good riddance. I don't really care. Y'all can go live in your echo chamber. But what's going to end up happening is more people are going to join X. And these people are going to have zero influence over anybody, right? They go over there to live in this bubble, and they're going to scream into the void, and they're going to have zero influence. Because you don't win elections by, and you don't win influence by, just writing off the other side. I can talk about like my stuff, and this is one reason why I have different ways that I interact with even trans people and stuff like this, is because I think that there is a reasonable middle that is winnable, but that reasonable middle is not going to be over on Blue Sky. They're not ideologically, like they're not the ideologues. So you have to interact with people you disagree on in order to win more people over to your side. And so if you're going to pick up your ball and go over to Blue Sky, you're basically giving up any influence that you may have in order to be able to win, maybe moderates to your side. But you also have to be able to understand how moderates think. And after this last election, so many of those people that went over to Blue Sky, they don't understand, and they want to, they're just going to continue to push the craziness. And at the end of the day, it's only going to make the right bigger. So Colatique, is that what it is? Says could say that one thing right back at them over how they are about Twitter/X. When you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. That's that's a pretty profound statement, right? They've had, in their own words, privilege on social media platforms. And so when you give people equal opportunity, equality, an equal voice, and to not self-censor, it feels like oppression to them. Yeah. That's actually a very good point. So yeah, I don't know. Blue Sky, like I said, it was dead over there. I went over there to try to troll some liberals, and it was dead. I couldn't. There was like I don't think my posts were being seen at all. Like at all. It is. It's funny. But I mean, even after all this, even Bernie Sanders says Elon Musk is right, at least about government waste after the Pentagon failed its 7th straight audit. It's really interesting that so this is the thing about Bernie, though, is he would rather take all the entire military budget and spend it on social programs, and not worry anything about, socialism. He is a socialist. He wants to expand government, but not with a military budget. All right, let's talk about this for a second. So there was this, again, this goes back to what we talked about earlier about the trans ban thing. This, I don't know where this Donald Trump news gets their information from. I don't believe it's from Trump himself. But it says breaking news: Robert F. Kennedy allegedly. So this is the problem I have with this. It says allegedly intends to require Coca-Cola to begin using cane sugar instead of high fructose corn syrup as HHS secretary's thoughts. This is an engagement farming post. We're finding out because, again, you use the word allegedly. I could say something that's allegedly something, and then it turned out to not be true. And it could just be a complete fabrication that I made up, but it's alleged. I'm alleging it. It's the same thing as reportedly. If somebody reportedly says something, well, that person that is reporting it, they could have just made it up. We saw this. Remember when there was the when Laura Loomer was talking about Joe Biden was in critical condition and wasn't expected to make it through the night a while ago? Everybody was like, reportedly. I'm covering myself with reportedly, and where did that go? Like, people were all like, oh, Laura Loomer was right. No. And now people will still contest that. Like, we talked about it on the show. You can go back and watch that. But that's really what this is saying. So, but let's talk about, I guess, I didn't see this until, so Callie Means, who's kind of in the Make America Healthy Again space, said, he never said this, and I know I'm pretty sure the Means are both close with RFK Jr. Now, here's the issue. I don't support the government telling a private business what to do. Obviously, y'all know I'm on the Maha train. I don't support the federal government forcing Coca-Cola to do anything, though. We can talk about regulations, but here's the issue with high fructose corn syrup. Our government has created the issue of high fructose corn syrup. In the Farm Bill, we subsidize corn. So we pay farmers a lot of money to grow a lot of corn. What ends up happening, and this is what we talked about before too on the show about tariffs, what ends up happening, you place tariffs on sugar, you subsidize corn, so there's an overproduction of corn with that, with Monsanto. Monsanto is getting tons of money through subsidies from corn and high fructose corn syrup. And what ends up happening is, what do? you use, I mean, people aren't eating corn, and really corn doesn't have any like nutritional value for you. Corn doesn't really get digested that well. It does clean out the system, but in terms of nutritional value, it's not anything. But then they create high fructose corn syrup because it's cheap. So instead of telling Coca-Cola what they're gonna do, why don't we get rid of the subsidies, make sugar cheaper, make high fructose, make it so it's, don't incentivize high fructose corn syrup. Because then otherwise, if you don't get rid of the subsidy, you're literally paying for them to throw away corn. So you're paying farmers to throw their corn away, which makes absolutely no sense. Get rid of the subsidies, allow the free market to take control, and allow Coke to put actual sugar, because that's why. So people say, being like, why does Coke in Mexico have real sugar, but it doesn't have it here? It's because we subsidize it. It's cheaper. So when they bottle Coke in Mexico, it's cheaper for them to do so because sugar is cheaper. And it's so crazy because all the people around here want to argue about this. And I'm like sugar is actually good for, like, they want to argue, and they're arguing as if sugar is actually good for you. Sugar is not good for you. It's not going to be good for you. I don't drink soda. But it's interesting that and this is how I guess people should have looked to be like, oh, is this was not necessarily accurate, because it says requires Coca-Cola. It specifically states a brand, not even just soda. It doesn't even say like soda companies. It says Coca-Cola. It specifies Coca-Cola. If they were really going to do something, they would ban high fructose corn syrup from being used in products. If it is an issue that high fructose corn syrup is essentially poison, then you would ban that from use, right? You wouldn't say we're going to require Coca-Cola to do something. No, that's not what's going to happen. You would ban the high fructose corn syrup, which they won't do because, again, we subsidize it. So cut the subsidy, and you won't even have to ban it. It won't be incentivized to use it. I think what we need to get to is an informed, when it comes to the Maha movement, it needs to be a full informed consent. We need to have more education onto what is being put in our food. I don't think it's going to I don't think centralized government is going to regulate the market. We need to actually deregulate the market in order for them to be able to produce good quality stuff. And then the one area where I think the government can do stuff is proper labeling, right? Like, if you want them to say, seed oil free, it should say seed oil free. Like, if you want it to say, we need to teach people to read labels again. This is one of those things. It's like we need like true informed consent, and not what we've been getting. But this isn't even informed consent, because they're going to be like, oh, sugar's fine. No, sugar's not fine either. Cane sugar it's better than high fructose corn syrup, but it's not fine. Damn, we ranted almost the whole hour tonight about all of our stuff, but let's get to the main story, and we'll see if we got time for more stuff afterwards. But Joe Biden pardons his son Hunter after he was convicted in the court of law. Now, if you remember, Hunter was charged with owning a gun while being on drugs. Well, a lot of people, and I would say that was actually, it's a really weird law. Like, what he was charged for was, it was one of those things that he shouldn't have been charged for. But if he's going to get pardoned for this, then everybody who was ever, prosecuted under that law should also get pardoned for this. But that wasn't the big that wasn't the big thing though, because he actually he pardoned him all the way for any crime, for literally any crimes he may have committed back until federal crimes that he may have committed going back all the way to 2014. Think about that. It really does validate everything. Like it almost verifies everything that conservatives were worried about with Hunter, and all the stuff that he had done. Joe tries to play it like if he wasn't his son, he got unfairly treated. But you're the president. It's your Department of Justice. What are you talking about? But yeah, there's so much, and really a lot of people are pointing out on this too is that, well, one, a lot of people are like, I don't like care that he pardoned. I mean, let's be real. If it's my son, now you mentioned some of the child stuff. If it's my son, that's not getting pardoned. That's not. But for some of this stuff, I mean, yeah, if it's my son, I'm probably gonna pardon. Like the gun crime, I mean, I probably would have pardoned him anyways. There's a lot of stuff that you've been like, okay, I'm gonna pardon my own son about. The child stuff, no, that needs to be brought to light. But here's what it really is. Now, remember, Donald Trump was impeached for trying to investigate Burisma, the corruption in Burisma, and that had to do with Hunter Biden selling access to Joe Biden using undue influences to get a Ukrainian prosecutor fired, which he's on record admitting to doing. That was getting ready to that was investigating Hunter's involvement in Burisma and the corruption there. Same with the Chinese dealings, his dealings over in China. Here's the thing. And there was like this thing where the term "the big guy" was used in both whistleblower complaints, and the whistleblower complaints, neither one of them had been released. They were released separately from each other. So there would have been no like collusion to be able to know that both people had said the big guy. But that's where it really kind of looks at that. And I think Joe Biden did this to basically save himself. If they start to investigate, when Trump comes into office, he can go in and investigate Joe Biden's connections to these things and possibly prosecute for corruption. Now, would he do that? I don't know. I'm assuming he's going to go in there, but they can still go. And apparently they're going to go in and they're going to investigate still. I don't know, and I don't know the laws. I would have to ask somebody that knows a little bit more about this too, but I don't think Joe Biden can pardon himself. If he could, then he's probably doing that behind the scenes. But I think a lot of people are actually more upset that he lied, right? He said he wasn't going to do it, and then he did it. And yeah. Now, again, the stupid liberals don't understand what they're saying. I mean, Keith Olbermann, obviously, he cries pee, so I don't know how much we listen to what he has to say. But he again, saying the quiet part out loud. He says, pardon Hunter, great. Now pardon everyone else. Every prosecutor, every Biden administration staffer, every media figure, everybody Trump will prosecute. 10 million pardons at least. And as Gunther Egelman says, are you admitting that there are over 10 million criminals in DC? Boom. Think about that. He's right. If he's worried about if he wants Joe Biden to pardon 10 million people because they will get prosecuted under Trump, he's saying that this is a complete corrupt administration and everybody, at least 10 million people in DC are criminals. God, these people are dumb, man. They're so dumb. Actually, and Jack Posobiec actually pointed out, does this mean that will they at least finally now tell us that it was Hunter Biden's cocaine that they found at the White House? Come on. Again, this is the left. Again, this was Joe Biden's Department of Justice going after his son. They're trying to claim, again, lawfare that they've done against Trump. You can't make this stuff up.
The only reason that Hunter Biden was gone after and charged, indicted, and found guilty was because his name wasn't Joe Smith, it was Hunter Biden. And that's the truth of it. You've got Eric Holder saying it. You've got former prosecutors like myself saying it. So,
Why did he admit it earlier?
Wait.
I
think one of the reasons why he didn't admit it earlier was because he didn't know that the felon in chief would become the next president. The only reason that Hunter...
So the only reason why they went after him is because he's Hunter Biden. That doesn't make any sense. Remember when they said the Hunter Biden laptop? Like, that's the other thing, is they've basically admitted everything that, all those conspiracy theories are now right. The Hunter Biden laptop story. Remember, it was not real. Now it is. They basically admitted all the crimes committed on there were right. It's like, just because he was found guilty. No. He was found guilty because he was guilty. I don't know. All right. Well, let's see. If you guys haven't heard either, this is actually, honestly, one of the best appointments that Trump has made. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya has been selected to head the National Institute of Health. If you don't remember, Dr. Bhattacharya was considered a fringe epidemiologist by Fauci and Francis Collins, who Francis Collins was the outgoing leader of the NIH. During COVID, Bhattacharya was considered a fringe epidemiologist, and he was silenced. The government colluded to silence his free speech online. Now, if you have not seen, you can actually hear all about Jay's stuff. So the first episode of The Cover-Up, Free the People's docuseries, The Cover-Up, is with Jay Bhattacharya. And it tells his story and what he saw and what he was pointing out and why he was silenced. And so I would definitely go say that's over on the Blaze. So you can go see it, but you can go to Free the People's YouTube channel. And it's in the playlist, it's in the first the Cover-Up playlist. And I would say, this appointment in and of itself is, this alone is worth it to see somebody like Jay get up there, because Jay is gonna, when I saw this, I got super excited, because we For the People, we have a good relationship with Jay, and nobody deserves it more. He was a great patriot enough, who was brave enough to speak out during COVID and speak out against lockdown and speak out against the data that ended up being wrong. So no, I couldn't be more happy about this selection. That's also the other one. They're freaking out because Kash Patel, and I think I met Kash real quick at a Trump unity event with the Log Cabin Republicans here in Atlanta towards the end of the election. But they're freaking out about his appointment, because it really is, when you start to read into his views on stuff, it really is a big fuck you to the deep state. He is going to expose so much. And I think this video right here actually exemplifies his views, and I think it's great.
How is this going to get broken up? They seem so deep.
Yeah.
I mean, you just mentioned they're embedded in politics, they're embedded in mainstream media, they're embedded in intelligence agencies, they are former top leadership of the military that's now embedded within the military industrial complex companies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's how many people are involved in this?
Thousands.
In the deep state.
Thousands.
How would you even begin to dismantle it?
Well, I think the first Trump administration was the beachhead, right? People were just like, you guys are full of it. And we continued to put out the truth. And years later, people are catching up to a lot of that truth, saying, wait a second, you guys weren't lying back then. People being the American public. That's the weapon we need. And you guys weren't lying about impeachment. They literally made up a piece of a phone call to launch a presidential impeachment and then put me in the middle of it by making up a meeting that never occurred. But it sounded dirty at the time. And then when we finally released the transcript, everybody was like, oh yeah, there was no quid pro quo. Nothing illegal happened here. But the narrative had been out there. Now you have President Trump as a president who was impeached for the first time in however many years. And so they get their narratives, right? They don't necessarily care about the conclusory portion of their mission. They use the mainstream media to say Trump's a Russian asset. He's been impeached. Kash Patel is under DOJ surveillance for whatever investigation when he was never done. I've had more mainstream media hits on me than I can count. But they want the title narrative to carry the day. Hunter Biden's laptop is Russian disinformation. They don't care about the actual truth.
Now he's pardoned.
You start stacking these together and you show the American public you were lied to. You based your vote at the polls on information that the government purposely withheld from you so that you would vote a particular way. Once you show enough Americans that, then I think you have the movement that you need behind the leadership that we have in Donald Trump, is my position, to take a wrecking ball to the deep state.
How so?
You go to DC and you remove all these positions, right? And you start enacting measures, not of retribution, but of legal consequence. Y'all acted one way. For instance, the people that signed the 51 Intel letter, right? Permanently suspend their security clearances forever. Every one of those guys lied. Every one of those guys got caught lying. You're talking about 2 former CIA directors, a former NSA director, and a former Secretary of Defense. All intentionally, to this day, continue to lie and won't take back their letter. Okay, you can stop making money from your security clearance. There's a start. Then you go in and you get the Eric Charmels of the world, who've been publicly outed as utilizing intel to inject a political narrative across mainstream America. And you remove these people from government. You have to go in there. And the same thing we're talking about the voting, it's the same thing here. You got to cleanse the scrolls. Government service is a service. We're not making you do it. And if you break the rules and regulations, you're out. So that's a big part of it, right? Then you bring in the new bench, the new team. Then you're going to have to keep fighting the media. And I think we're slowly, over the years, have started to win that fight. Because the more and more, this is one thing I learned when I started Russiagate, my name was outed for the first time, that the media is attacking you, the more you're over the target.
Who is at the head of it?
I don't think there's one person or one group. I think it's people who know they're going to benefit from each other if they sign up for the program, let's call it, right? And so, again, not a Republican or Democrat thing. In the glossary of this book, in alphabetical order, I think there's like 65 people I name by title and name, just to show people how expansive the deep state is. And so there is no like one chain of command they report to. Instead, what I believe they do is they bring in people that they can control. Oh, the Obamas still have heavy sway in that entire operation. And so do people that have been around for 10, 20, 30 years in Washington.
mean, there's more clips like this out there. This interview, I haven't watched that whole interview itself, but there's another point where he talks about making the Hoover Building on day one a museum for the deep state. I think here's the thing: it's a great pick. It's the pick that we all want. It's the pick that we all voted for. Expose the deep state, expose the deep-seated corruption in Washington. If he goes in there, if he gets confirmed, this could be just an amazing. I think that this administration could be go down in history as one that's done the most to preserve freedom and to root out deep-seated corruption in our system. I think you're going to see somebody like Kash Patel is going to expose how many FBI informants, how many people the FBI had on the ground during January 6th. I think you're going to see a lot of this stuff open up, and people are going to see how much just games that these people have been playing with the American people. How much entrapment they have been executing in so many of these things. And like he's saying, you just have to, and now between them being able to expose it, the left-wing media is not going to report on a lot of this stuff or accurately, and they don't need to. Most people are on X, and you show people videos, you show people where you expose this stuff, and people start to wake up. That's what I mean. Remember, this is what we talked about. Like even like somebody like Michael Rappaport, who was a huge TDS, like one of the worst, how he woke up because he actually saw the context in the video. Finally saw the context in videos that they showed. I think that's where we're going to see things start to happen. I think that'll be a good thing. Now, the last one I just want to point to real quick is probably the worst pick that Donald Trump has made. Donald Trump, Florida sheriff tapped by Trump to lead the Drug Enforcement Agency for over 32 years. Sheriff Chad Cronsenster, I don't know how to say that, has served Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office and received countless commendations and awards for keeping his community safe, Trump wrote. This is a kind of a slap in the face to those of us that are hopeful, because this was March 30th of 2020, right at the beginning of COVID. This guy announcing the arrest of Dr. Ron Howard Brown, pastor of the River at Tampa Bay Church, who intentionally and repeatedly disregarded state and local public health orders, which put his congregation and our community in danger. So he was one of these police officers who was following orders, or he was actually pushing the orders to arrest pastors for hosting church during COVID. This was the COVID tyranny that we all speak out against. All spoke out. I mean, we were speaking out against it then. If you don't believe me, here is my post on there from March 31st of 2020, where I said this is a clear violation of the First Amendment. You can't suspend the right to assemble or worship under any circumstances. It is an innumerable right in the Constitution that he was violating during COVID. It's one of those things where if you allow the government to take away your rights for emergencies, they will create emergencies to take your rights. This guy has no business being anywhere near government. In fact, he needs to be unemployed, never to be working in police business again for his unconstitutional acts. He's already broken his oath of office to the Constitution of the United States. He does not deserve to get confirmed. This is one that Republicans really need to shut down. So yeah, I'm passionate about this one. This one does not need to go anywhere. He needs to be he does not need to be confirmed. He does not need to be anywhere near the White House if he thinks that arresting a pastor because of COVID, who was just trying to hold church service, if he thinks that that's okay, he doesn't deserve to be anywhere near the administration. But with that, if you made it this far, remember next week, I'm not going to be here next week. I am going to be traveling to the swamp. So with that, make sure you click that like and subscribe button below. Follow me across all social media platforms, and I will see you next time.